I don't know. I'm partial to soccer because I'm passionate about it.
I know when I was growing up, we didn't have strong, confident female role models. I followed my big brother around, who's 2 years older than me, and whether it was playing street hockey, tackle football, you name it, I was always on his heels, dying to get in the game.
Say you're going in the wrong direction because it was halftime and we switched our direction, and I'd forgotten about that. And I was on this dead breakaway.
You can get 5 coaches in the same room, and we all thought 5 different opinions on maybe how Kerry Taylor was as a player.
I was a great player.
And then when I got off the field, she would say, "You did so great. I loved watching you play." No matter, I could have the worst game of my life.
And it was the president of the Deaf Soccer Association asking if I'd be interested in the volunteer job that was the head coach of the deaf team. And I actually was extremely excited.
I'm Kerry Taylor, and this is Women Talking Football.
And thank you for tuning in to Women Talking Football. Again, I'm your host, Kerry Taylor, and we are presented by Soccer Loco, and we are also presented by Soccer Nation and affiliated with Soccer Loco and Techne Football and Kings Pro. So today on the show, we're welcoming my friend Maureen Monte. Maureen, thanks for joining us on Women Talking Football.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be here, and what an honor. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to have you on it, and we're not necessarily going to be talking about soccer so much, but sport and teams and how to get teams to work together better to achieve unstoppable results. So Maureen, again, thanks for joining us. I have you can't see me, but I have my Michigan shirt on right now. I'm representing Michigan because I know you live in Michigan. So I wanted to just get that thrown out there. So can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and just kind of how your career has gone, and then we can kind of get into all the fun stuff.
Sure. Thank you. So my value proposition to the universe is that I build winning teams. Now, what does that mean? That in sports, it's a little easier to understand, but I also work in the corporate world. And what it means regardless is I work with teams to unite as one team so that they can overcome the significant obstacles they will face on the path to winning or achieving goals. So that's what I do. Now, how did I get here at the age of, I'm in my mid-50s, and so I've been around for a long time, but as with all of us, when you look back, you can see kind of a common theme. Mm-hmm. Although it isn't instantly evident. I have a BS and MS in mechanical engineering, and I caveat that with I was great at solving people problems. So my customers love me, but I really had no interest in things like engines. And I enjoyed a long career in helping clients be successful. And then I got a master's in leadership in business ethics, and that was in 2006. And I was exposed to a tool called the Clifton Strengths Finder.
Okay.
And at that point, I was instantly hooked. It was like Godiva chocolate with the best almonds in it. And
I like the sound of that, Godiva chocolate.
That works.
Yes, I like
anything
that.
with chocolate and nuts, it's just like, okay, I'll have some of that.
I'm in.
If we had coffee, it'd be even better, right?
Exactly.
So since 2006, I've been using this magnificent tool that measures the internal motor of people. And one of my favorite quotes comes from Theo Epstein, who is the young man, and I do mean young, who helped the Boston Red Sox win the World Series a few years back and then joined the Chicago Cubs. So he's basically broken 2 curses, right?
Right.
This young guy. And one of my favorite quotes is he speaks about how important it is to understand the success of the team and the individual is harnessed or is part of the internal motor of that person. Mm-hmm. So we can measure that internal motor, and that the Clifton Strengths Finder tool helps us measure how we think to solve problems. And I cannot look at you and see what's happening inside your head, right? We cannot see that. how we execute tasks, how we build relationships, and how we galvanize the universe to do something they might not have done otherwise. So all my journeys with teams, with individuals and teams, begin with understanding the motor, but they don't end there. What does success look like? What struggles do we need to overcome? Do we know what the responsibilities of the role are, both on the court or on the field or on the ice and off? So long story short, I build winning teams by starting from a place of what their internal motor looks like, helping the organization and the coaches harness that talent. And there's always untapped talent on every single team. When we did your results, we found something happening inside your head that we didn't even really know was something we could harness, right?
Yeah.
It made sense when you saw it, but we learned what we could harness from you that we may not have been able to specify previously. So at the end of the day, we're looking to help teams, individuals and teams, reach their full potential. And that's what Destination Unstoppable is all about. It's a mindset. It is a common shared view of how good you are, how good I am, and we know what success looks like. We understand each other's strengths, and we go after it.
Yeah, I mean, you referenced your book, Destination Unstoppable, and I had heard you speak on John O'Sullivan's podcast, and I was like, okay, what is this book about? And I ordered it, and I literally read it in a day and a half. I couldn't put it down because it was so powerful about being able to tap into, like you said, the mind of each of the players, and then once people were able to understand themselves, then the coach could give them a specific role to kind of get the energy all going together instead of running into each other. So,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, can you speak a little bit about, not to give away the whole premise of your book, but can you speak a little bit about, how that experience started with that particular team?
Sure, absolutely. I was still in the corporate world at that time, right? I was working for IBM, and I never call it IBM in the book. I just call it the company because it really doesn't matter. All large companies have similar kinds of problems. And one of those problems is people get overlooked, right? And I was in a situation where I didn't feel valued for being valuable in the corporate world. So I was kind of wondering what I needed to do next to get to what I do best, which is building winning teams, and through this process we just described. And I got a phone call. Would I help the local Cranbrook high school hockey team, which was dysfunctional but talented? Mm-hmm. Would I help them? And I was instantly all in because I love sports. I've studied all kinds of sports throughout my life and played sports. And to me, sports is the perfect strength-based system. We don't take a goalie and say, now go, practice shooting goals.
Right.
We say to a goalie, let's practice stopping goals and find all kinds of ways to do that, right? In the corporate world, they'll try to make you something you're not because it's simply they don't know what else to do. Mm-hmm. So I met with Coach Weidenbach, and my first question inside my head was, is the coach the problem or is the team the problem, or both, right? And so it turns out Coach Weidenbach said, I'm the maestro, and if the orchestra doesn't play the music, it's the maestro's fault.
I love that.
Isn't that a great line?
I love that. And that's one of the things that I highlighted in the book. And as a coach myself, it spoke to me. And that's such a great perspective.
The buck stops here, right? But at the same time, he was humble enough to say, I don't know what else to do with this team.
Right.
And I didn't know it at the time, but that Coach Weinbach is coached at the professional level. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know I was dealing with really a magnificent leader. And but I told him about that at the corporate level, this happens all the time. We've got untapped talent on the team. These kids are rubbing up against one another. There's friction. What does success look like? Do we all agree? And so a few days later, I was in the boys' locker room, and I said to them, what does success look like? And I let them define it, right? Mm-hmm. And, of course, it was winning the state championship, but then it was, well, what about the behaviors? And while Coach Weidenbach had been preaching, you've got to believe in one another, you got to respect one another, you got to think positively, none of that worked. They didn't hear him. But as they began to say, we got to have brotherhood and full effort, et cetera, et cetera. So we defined a success statement that they could then align behind. And when they left the room, that was a different team that came in the room. And so I already knew we were on the right track. And so then we measured their strengths. And that's where, as we talk about it in the book, this team was fundamentally different than any other team I've worked with in the corporate world. And we'll talk more about it, I know, in our podcast here. But that's what I've begun to realize now that I've worked with more teams, more sports teams, is athletes are different.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
You guys should have your own species.
Yes.
So we figured out that out of 23 or so people on the team, 18 of them had the strengths of competition, and competition is a galvanizing strength. If I create a competition, people will do things they wouldn't do otherwise.
Right.
It's galvanizing. But at the same time, the question then becomes, who's the competition? The guy sitting next to you or the guy on the other team? And
Right.
it should be the other team, right? So we harnessed some untapped talent we found in terms of some thinking strengths that weren't valued or understood. And really, as you know, the hero of the book is the third-string goalie, Nolan Rogo, who had the strength of harmony. And this team was so completely fragmented because everybody wanted to win, but they were all pulling in different directions to win.
Mm-hmm.
That all that competition was going in a dozen different directions, not in one direction. And so this is where coach's own individualization strength comes in, and that's the strength that helps us understand what makes each person tick. And when someone understands us and how we tick, that feels really great, and we'll follow those people to the ends of the earth. So he created lanes for each player. So this third-string goalie who never played, right? He was never going to save the day on the ice. He said to Nolan, if you see conflict in the locker room, now will you do something about it? And he said, I will. And he said, I don't just want you to, I expect you to.
Right.
And he said that in front of the whole team, and therefore Nolan had, even though he wasn't a starter, he became like the team captain of team chemistry. And everybody I spoke to after they won the state championship 6 weeks later, they didn't talk about the win. They talked about how great it felt as individuals to be valued and understood, to reach that pinnacle of success as a team that they knew they could achieve. They had the talent for it. And they talked about Nolan and the importance of having him as kind of that human glue guy.
Yeah. Yeah, Nolan was, it was amazing to see how much and how many of the players mentioned him and how integral he was and everything.
Yes. And what a lesson from an athlete standpoint, what a lesson for kids sitting on the bench, right? That there may be things you could be doing. And a lesson for the coach, there are things you could be asking them to do that are not necessarily related to the 60 minutes that the game is on, right? Or whatever the time frame is. And he didn't give up, right? He could have quit and said, all right, well, if I'm third-string goalie, I want to play.
Right.
Well, it turns out, of course, the following year he was a starter. He played in goal. And not only did he play, he got the award for the coach's award for being the best teammate on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So to go from his standpoint, to go from overlooked and undervalued to, a year and a half later being not only the winner of helping them win the state championship by his talent off the ice, but then on the ice as well. He got that chance, right? So sometimes you have to be a little bit patient.
Yeah. So we've been talking about these strengths. So, for someone that is totally unfamiliar with what the Clifton Strengths Finder does and what people's strengths could be, can you kind of walk us through how that works? I did the assessment, and it was addicting, and it was so mind opening. And I've been telling all my friends about it. I was like, you have to do this. This is great. Like, this can help you. It can help you understand yourself. It can help you understand, how you fit in at work. So take us through what is this Strength Finder and how does it work?
Sure. And we should do that. That is, I'm throwing these words around like everybody knows it, right? And it is its own little language, kind of like any other industry. Even sports industries, they talk about stuff, and unless you play football, then I'm talking like Patriots football. There's language, or if you're a lawyer or a doctor, they use words you don't even really know what they're talking about, right? But it means something to them.
Right.
There's a language around talent. So the Strength Finder is founded in studying 2 million people looking for patterns of excellence. So right from the start, we are not focused on your weaknesses. We are focused on your patterns of excellence, because your best potential, the greatest potential within you, comes from harnessing your strengths, not from fixing your weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
So the Strength Finder measures talent, your innate talent, and how it's more than personality, because it includes how you think, and we know we can't see that, how you execute tasks. This is how you get things done responsibly. There are things that are looking for risk. You're risk sensitive. There's all this 34 patterns of excellence that are kind of discrete in nature. There are relating strengths, which are closest to personality. So I call this human glue. That's what Nolan had. He had that strength of harmony. And then there are strengths associated with galvanizing. The athletes, the male athletes in particular, are high on galvanizing. So when you take the Strengths Finder, it's an online assessment. They've raised the price to $20, $19.95, just in the past few weeks. But if you think about the value proposition of being able to understand what your top strengths are and how you think, execute, relate, and influence for $20, plus, as you know, the report that you get is custom to you.
Yes.
So we shared the strengths of learner, right, which we like to learn.
Right.
That's happening inside our head, right? We're collecting information. We like to master stuff. It's in our head, and it comes out in other ways, how we execute tasks, how we build relationships. But it's in our head. Your description of learner was different from my description of learner.
Yes, it was.
So one of the real advantages of this assessment is it's discrete, not only in the 34 patterns of excellence, which is a lot, but your customized top 5 report is unique to you. Mm-hmm. So you can have a whole bunch of people with the same strength and have it read entirely differently. And I akin it to like coffee beans. If you have coffee from Sumatra, that's different than coffee from Kona, that's different from coffee from Ethiopia, mm-hmm. right? But it's all coffee. So we both have learner, but our strengths are different.
Right.
The key is, what do you do with it? So then it's like, now what? Well, once you know what your strengths are, first of all, you may read it and go, well, yeah, that's me. But do other people know this about you? And are you harnessing these natural abilities in your role? Can you align them with success in your role? Can you align it with success of the team? And so now we start to pay attention to how we use these talents so that we're successful as individuals. We do it with intent. And this takes focus, right? This is like deciding you're going to strengthen your quads. You mm-hmm. have to work at it, yeah. right? And then there's the others awareness. The real bang for the buck comes from you understanding the partners that you work with at work or in the community or in your family, and them understanding you and looking for ways to provide balance. We don't want everybody to have competition. That is not necessarily a winning formula because that much nuclear energy can tear a team apart. We want a well-rounded team. We want some of the competition. We want some of the harmony. We want some of the futuristic thinking, so we have a next play mentality, and we want to work hard, right? So that's kind of a well-rounded approach to building partnerships and teams.
Yeah, and it was so interesting to me because I tried to guess my strengths like before I took the assessment. That
was fabulous, by the way.
I read through all the all of what they could be, like the little summaries, and I tried to guess my strengths, and I guessed right on 3 of the 5, and then
amazing, by the way.
Another one was at 6, so I was pretty close. Like. I basically had 4 out of my top 6. So to give our listeners a little bit more information on kind of what these strengths are and could be and how it fits to how you are, I'm willing to go over mine because I think the people that know me, once we talk through this, will actually find it kind of comical because it's so in my mind it so represents who I am and maybe why I could be misinterpreted or misunderstood or just it was eye-opening to me just looking back at different roles that I've had in the past and thinking of interactions that I had with coworkers or bosses or things like that. So
sure.
Let's talk about my top 5.
Let's talk about you.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to list them and talk about each one, or I'll talk about it, or how would you like to go about it?
So I'll list the top 5, and then maybe you can kind of give what category those fall in and how those,
sure.
Whether you spoke about, how rare some of them are or men versus women on some of them. So mm-hmm. in doing my Strengths Finder, I found that my top strength came out as a relator, and then learner, command, achiever, and self-assurance. So maybe kind of talk about those. And
sure.
and I'm guessing people are going to laugh at some of those because command,
right.
Self-assured, yeah. I'm sure, achiever, yeah. I mean, my friends are like, yeah, Carrie, that's pretty much you.
Oh my gosh, what a wonder. First of all, I do have to celebrate again that you could list out of 34 patterns, out of 34 strengths, you could list 3 out of your top 5. That is amazing because that is just unheard of. I'm not very good at I'm always guessing, and I'm always sure I'm right, and I keep losing my 401k, which I keep betting.
Yeah, don't bet.
I got to stop betting my 401k. So relator, that's your first strength, and that, and already we're into weird language, right? People look at it, and it looks like realtor almost. Right. And they're like, this says I'm a realtor. I said, no, it's a relator strength. And that what it really means is, think about relating, right? So that means that you're warm, and this is one of those relating talents that's human glue. This is how you form bonds with people you grow to know. It is not just warmth. As we talked about, there's actually kind of a moat around your heart, right? So you've got this warm exterior. Your pictures, I've seen you online, and you've got this great smile. You're very, I think you would draw people to you. And yet at the core of you at the core of it all is only a small, deep circle of friends.
True.
Right? So not everybody gets to cross that moat.
True.
Yeah. So, but yet you love those core group. You love that core group, and they are yours forever.
Yep.
Right. And then learner is your first thinking strength. So that's happening inside your head, and you like to learn. You like to master something. And I think when you heard about the Strengths Finder, you were kind of intrigued,
yes.
Right? Oh, that's something new. Let me go learn about that.
Yep.
But it also serves as what I call a feeder strength to do other things. With that knowledge, you then go off and help people do what you want them to do. You can use it to coach. You can use it to succeed in your own endeavors, is how you're getting things done. But it's happening inside your head. You're probably a lifelong curious person, right?
Yeah, I take online classes and stuff like that just for fun. So
just for fun.
Just
right?
for fun.
And you think, I would love to learn that.
Yeah.
Where the rest of us can't wait to get done with school, perhaps, right? And you're perpetually in school. And even if it's something just that you're interested in, it doesn't have to be advancing your career, per se.
Right.
Then command. So this is where things get interesting with you, Carrie.
Okay. Bring it on.
Bring it on. So command is, at its best, it provides emotional clarity to challenging situations. So command needs challenge. It almost needs conflict. So you can say, all right, this is what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it.
Right.
And as I told you before, only in the general population around the world, and some 16 million people have taken the Strengths Finder, and I can see how the strengths lay out of all in order for all 34 around the world. And command is the least common top 5 strengths globally, male or female. This is, as 16 million people, command is the least common strength, with less than 5% of the general population having that strength in its top 5. And in their top 5 results. And if you think about it at its core, this ability to take charge, drive the bus. That's why I knew we did not prep for this, did we? We didn't go like, let's see, here's our agenda. I'm like, she's going to drive the bus. She's got to come in. I'm the subject matter expert. Well, I'll go where she's going. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
So I had complete confidence in you. And yet, because it is kind of the command, take charge, here's how we're going to do it. First of all, we expect that now we're into kind of the gender expectation stuff.
Yeah.
We expect that from men. We expect that less from women.
Yeah, and that, I mean, we were just talking about being misunderstood or how you come across, and I'm just, selfishly, I'm just looking at myself and thinking, I've been misunderstood in so many situations because I'm a woman, and I'm not afraid to say, hey, like I know the way to go, like let's do this. And when you said it's the least common strength of anyone, and then throw in the gender aspect, it's like, oh my gosh, everything makes sense to me now, and now I can embrace it, and I can understand different things, and hopefully other people that could be now understand why I am the way I am. Maybe they look at me in a different way, or maybe it's it just adds meaning to maybe some of the misunderstanding that I've come across in my career. Exactly. And you are going to be misunderstood. Anybody with command is going to be misunderstood because it's so rare. And a woman being with command is going to be misunderstood more because of the gender expectation, right? Who does she think she is taking charge of this bus? And now that we know you have command, now we can say, all right, Carrie, you're in charge. Here's what we need to do. You figure it out. Right. And off you go, right?
So versus that kind of a battle, that ego battle that might occur between someone that says, well, I'm actually the formal leader of the team, right? And it's mine to run. So we start putting people in positions in lanes where their strengths are understood and valued, rather than the hierarchy. And going back to Nolan, third string goalie, hierarchy-wise on the team, he was at the bottom. He wasn't a senior, he wasn't a starter, he wasn't a star. And so to raise his hierarchy up to make him the team captain of team chemistry, that honored his strength. And he did that. And by the way, let's be clear about one thing right now. There's nothing more frustrating than having your strengths violated.
Yes.
So when somebody shuts you down for having confidence in, all right, that is the worst feeling in the world.
Yes.
So
I had
not only are you misunderstood, you're shut down. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I had that in my notes here about talking about how a person feels and reacts once they understand their strengths, when those strengths are violated, that kind of bothers them more than anything else out there. So
that's right.
And I think about situations where, I've put my hand up to say, hey, I'll take, the lead on a project, and someone says, no, we'll have so-and-so do it, and how that made me feel. And now it makes sense. My strength was violated, and
your strength was violated.
Yeah. And it hurt, or, well, I don't know if hurt is the right word, but it affected what I wanted to do with my energy, or felt that I could do or achieve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
So on to achiever. That's the other one.
Achiever. So you go from command, the least common strength on the planet. Achiever's the most common top 5 strengths.
Okay.
So of all 34 strengths on the DISC assessment measures, achiever appears most often at about the 30% mark. So a third of us have this ability to work ourselves to death, right? Every day is a new day. What I did yesterday doesn't count. I have a to-do list. Let's get it done. And vacations are hard, and slowing down is hard, and relaxing is hard, and it is one of the most common strengths in an athlete's profile.
Okay. Oh, in the athlete's profile. Okay, that.
Yeah, we can talk about the athlete's profile because I've got a couple of them. Well, one for men and one for women.
Yeah, we'll get to that. The last
one.
We'll
get to that.
The last one, self-assurance. Yeah, speak to me on that, because I'm thinking like the command and self-assurance might go hand in hand a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not only are you in charge, you're confident about the direction you're going to take, right? So self-assurance is confidence. Command is I'm in charge. Okay. So, and self-assurance, back to you being unusual.
I'm unusual.
It's inevitable. We know that now, how wonderful you are. Now we know why.
Yeah.
Self-assurance is the least common top 5 strength amongst women.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me, which is sad. It doesn't surprise me, though.
It is sad. Yeah. And we say to women, you have to be more confident, right? And they're like, okay. And you can be confident. You can be confident through knowledge. You can be confident that you know someone well. You can be confident that you're doing the right thing. But pure, raw confidence that I know I'm right about this is this self-assurance thing. So you've got 2 of these galvanizing strengths. So this is the influencing talent that you have, which are red in color. So we're going to talk about red and green and et cetera, et cetera. You've got one of your executing strengths is achiever. You work hard every day, very hard to take a day off and relax.
Right.
Learner is your thinking strength in your top 5, and that's happening inside your head. That's your strategic thinking. And then relator's your, what I call human glue, or connecting with others strengths, relating. So out of your top 5, you have 2 influencing, 1 relating, 1 thinking, and 1 achieving, executing. Okay?
Yes.
And then, as you know, we've unlocked your 34. I don't think we should dive into the whole profile because it's a little bit complicated to go that far down into it.
Top 5 are good.
Did you want to speak at all to learning about the stuff at the bottom and how that helps you understand who to partner with?
Yeah, because I think that can be the key in figuring out who to best surround yourself with in making up your work team or your coaching staff or whatever it may be. So let's definitely talk about how the bottom 5 can impact things. So my bottom 5 makes sense as well.
So low for you, and I love this, I'm low. Low for you is harmony, for example. So you're not, if somebody pushes you, you're going to push back.
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty much me.
Someone with harmony like Nolan had would not push back per se. They might say, whoa, what do you want? And you hear what they want, and then they hear what the other person wants. You're like, okay, well, I see common ground here, right? So that isn't you. So in your lower strengths, which are, by the way, those don't go to zero. It just takes so much more energy to do what you don't do naturally,
Okay.
right? It takes harder work. It drains you. So if you had to be at the United Nations every day, you would not feel energized.
Right.
Right, because there's all these people that you have to be diplomatic with, and I don't think you'd enjoy that at all, especially since you'd be in charge or want to be in charge. So
Yes.
I don't think that would be very fun.
Yes.
So I would say, generally speaking, you add your strengths at the top are kind of the galvanizing and getting it done, and maybe further down are some of the relating and some of the thinking. So you might look for partnerships with people that do those things.
Right.
Right.
So someone that might be high in empathy or harmony could be a good person to kind of work next to, so that my red galvanizing can team up with the green influencers,
right,
or with the green relationship building.
That's right.
Okay.
And so now we've got all the best of all the worlds.
Right.
You've got people talented in relating, you have people talented in thinking, people talented in galvanizing, and people talented in getting it done, right? And we want all of the strengths. And by the way, there's no strength envy allowed. It isn't better to have galvanizing.
Strength envy, I like that. But I want harmony. I want harmony. No, I want activator.
Oh, yes, exactly. Wouldn't it be fun to trade strengths for a day? That would be a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
So anyhow, yeah, in the end, it's finding people. A great leader will not pick people just like him or her. They'll pick people that are different, so that we've got people that have the green strengths for the pulse of the organization. How's the team feel? The green strengths people are going to know that. The relating strengths people are going to know that. Having some strategic thinkers so that you don't execute yourself in the wrong direction, right? Have you ever driven 100 miles an hour and you find out an hour down the road you're headed in the wrong way?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point of speed if you're not navigating correctly? And that's where the thinking strengths can come in. So it's a matter of understanding your strengths first, and then beginning to share that value proposition with others so they understand you, and then understanding and appreciating the strengths of the people around you as well. So
right.
That's kind of that.
So you touched on the gender piece a little bit in mentioning that, like, self-assurance is the least common top 5 strength in women. Mm-hmm. So what in all of your research with teams or companies and things like that, what are the trends that you've recognized within the strengths within different within the genders?
Yeah. So let me take one tiny step back at a higher level and say there are trends at the individual strength level. So let's pick journalism.
Okay.
So if you think about journalism, and you're a TV reporter or a newspaper reporter, do you know what's going to happen that day, especially in this world that we live in right now?
No.
We really don't, right? So it turns out that journalists have a strength called adaptability, and it's a relating strength, and it kind of can go with the flow, right? Oh, we have to go. There's a fire over here. I'm going over there. Oh, gosh, there was a heroic moment over here. I'm going over here next. And so they kind of adapt to the needs of the moment. So, but that's one strength out of the 34. Then the rest of them are just kind of what they are. Mm-hmm. But there are strengths that are kind of common in what I would call an industry. So engineers tend to be analytical.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
It does make sense, right? I mean, and that's what they enjoy all those numbers, right? And all that math. So there are some kind of, at a high level, particular strengths that belong to an industry. But after that, it's down to the individual. Now, having said that, overall, women are far more inclined towards this green relating talent stuff. Harmony, adaptability, positivity, injecting enthusiasm, including, helping people feel included. So that's typically, you're going to find those in the top 5 strengths of women more than you're going to find that in men. Now, if we've got a man with empathy and includer and positivity, and he can help inject enthusiasm, and he can tell how that customer feels because he has empathy, and he will not leave anybody out, that is a great value proposition. Mm-hmm. We just need to harness him, right, as such, and not say, well, he's too soft for business. No, actually, the clients are going to love him. So let's have him be in that right role. Then conversely for women, they tend to be less inclined with some of the thinking strengths, things like analytical, things like ideation. That's my number 1 strength. And I forever have been misunderstood for having this outside the box mentality. So there are kind of trends in men and women, but when we go down to the athlete level, which is where I would like to go with this, because what surprised me was if you're a medical doctor, male or female, you had some of these common themes. If you're an engineer, many of the women had analytical that were engineers. So when I started working with athletes, it turned out I started working with men. It was the boys' hockey team, right? And, of course, the number one strength on the team of 23 people was competition. Mm-hmm. I'm like, while it was the most competition I'd ever seen per capita on a team, they're hockey players, right? So then I work with a girls' varsity basketball team. And I'm absolutely expecting to see a whole bunch of women with competition in their top 5 strengths. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, out of 23 people, now the hockey team, 18 out of 23 had competition. Out of 23 people, including coaches, only 2 people had competition, and only one of those was a basketball player.
Only 2?
Only 2 people out of 23 from the women's team.
Right. And
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm like, all right, they're from Iowa. I know they're nice people because they're from Iowa. Maybe it's Iowa is all. And then what they do have is all this relating talent, includer, harmony. They have all this green strength stuff.
Right.
And so then I worked with another hockey team, and I had a similar makeup of a lot of competition and some thinking. And then I worked with a girls' varsity lacrosse team in Orlando, and 24 people, only 2 players with competition, and only 2 people on that team. So I'm starting now. I've got a couple hundred people of data, and what I'm starting to realize is men and women are different at this level. Right. So in these athletic groups, what I found to be, when I looked at men versus women, executing talent, which is how like achiever, and one of the other most common executing strengths in an athlete profile is restorative. Okay. Restorative is I refuse to give up. When you hear people say I'm gritty, somebody's gritty, that's restorative. They will get up after falling down 18 times. They're all banged up. They will not quit. So men and women alike, that is very high for them. It's the number one strength in an athlete's profile for women, of the women that I have, is restorative. They don't give up. Competition is the number one strength for men. For women, competition is not even half. They don't have half as much competition per se as per capita as men. So executing wise and thinking wise, men and women are about the same, almost identically. The percentage of strengths in their top 5 that are executing. So they are getting it done, and they are thinking. But when it comes down then to the relating, which is kind of the heart strengths, the human glue, and the galvanizing, that's when there's this flip, and it's almost identical. So 29% of men have those red galvanizing strengths: competition, command, self-assurance, activator, which is foot on the gas. So 29% of all of the strengths in the men's athlete profiles that I have are red, and it's only 17% in the women. So a considerable drop, right? Women are not as high power. They are not wired like you. Right? There are far fewer women
that are wired like me. Yeah, I've often thought,
it's true, and I expected it not to be true in the athlete profile. Right. And then, but for men, only 20% of their strengths are green, or the human glue kind of thing, and 32% are for women. So as I continued to do some research on it, I came across a great quote, and I'll talk in a little bit more depth here in a second about those, on what strengths are most frequent, but David Marsh, who's a famous Coach Marsh is a famous swimming coach. He did the Olympic female team in the last Olympics, and he said he does coach both men and women. And he comes around and says, I don't coach them the same way. He's learned that the most important difference fact is that most female swimmers value relationships over results. Yeah, and so that team has to be happy and harmonious, and then they'll swim like heck for you. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I've heard some people say, oh, well, and relating this back to soccer, oh, you can coach, it's the same game, same rules, same this, like you can coach women and men the same way. And I've been saying for years, no, it's not. And having coached both men and women at the youth level and also at the college level, it's a totally different psychology. day in and day out between the genders. And the Strengths Finder, it's like, okay, here's something I can actually point to say, look, here's some data on how men and women differ within the realm of sport. It can be different in industry, but within the realm of sport, for women specifically, the relationships tend to matter a lot more.
A lot.
Yeah.
More.
And coaches have to, in order to be successful, in my opinion, they have to understand that and be able to utilize that within their team.
Absolutely. And so one question what I would ask for you, and we obviously didn't discuss this ahead of time because we didn't plan anything, did you feel you were better suited towards one or the other? Now that you're aware of the kind of the galvanizing, men having more of the competition command significance, and women having more of the empathy, which do you think you enjoy more or are more suited for?
That's a very interesting question, Maureen, because I've thought about that, and people have asked me that same question. And now, understanding my strengths, I understand that I sometimes would prefer to coach the boys, to be honest. So my girls teams out there, if anybody's listening, sorry, but it matches up a little bit more with knowing this about myself and this about the trends within strengths.
Yeah. And see, what's hard about the tone of your voice, I could hear you feeling apologetic, right?
Yeah, I felt conflicted about it a little bit.
Yes, you did. You actually had some conflict there.
Yeah.
And that's normal. And so I think what's good is to say, I love coaching. I think I'm at my best when I'm working with a profile that's more of the galvanizing type, the people that are more driven, the command. If they need kind of the coddling, and I'm very open. I'm not as galvanizing as you are, but I'm wired like you in terms of if I have to convince you to do this in some way, shape, or form, or kind of bring that emotional heart to it, I want you to win because I want you to be at your very best. I'm not we're all one world and I'm all women and I'm pro women. I'm none of that, right?
Right.
So I find that I'm better suited for different reasons for the male side of it. I'm not good at all. And this is where I run into trouble in the corporate world. If I have to convince you to understand yourself and being at your best, I'm the wrong person.
Right.
I want that. If you don't want it, I don't want it
for
you, right? If you don't want it, I don't want it.
Yep.
I want to work with somebody that wants it, right?
Yeah.
So I feel a little apologetic sometimes as well. And in reality, I'm just stating what works best for me. I'm at my best when I'm working with people that are motivated and understand and want to achieve success.
Right.
Period. Right. So, but from the standpoint of the strengths, you're right. There are probably going to be men more with a profile more like yours than women. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, that the girls' varsity basketball coach that I worked with out of Springville, Iowa, his name is Coach Nate Sanderson. He's remarkable. He's got empathy. Mm-hmm. He's got these human glue stuff going, and the women love him. And he had his girls basketball team won the state championship with 4 freshmen.
Oh wow!
And you don't get that without bringing out the very best in a bunch of girls, right? Yeah. And I heard him live stream. They won again this year after he did strengths. And by the way, he used Strengths Finder to help them understand mistake response.
Okay.
So that's a really interesting value proposition that's probably for another time. But he's like, all right, how are we going to respond to mistakes, especially women who are more emotional by nature, right? So, but I heard him say in the huddle when they were going to win the state championship, I heard him say, hey, as they were breaking up, he goes, hey, you be gracious after this or something like that. Remember, they make us better. And he's already feeling bad for that other team that's losing. Right? And a guy basketball game, I don't think you'd hear him say, be great. A coach say, be gracious. They'd be like,
yeah,
we killed it.
Yeah, exactly. Woo, we're champions. Let's rub it in their face.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was very interesting. And so he's more suited for that kind of environment, right? And he shouldn't apologize. He's a guy more well suited for that environment. So.
Right. So a question, and you and I had briefly talked about this offline before. A lot of people are saying, where are all the women in coaching, or where are all the women in sport? And after doing the Strengths Finder and looking at some of the data and reading your book and thinking about it, are we trying to put women maybe in positions and have equality where that might not be where their strengths are at? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great question, and I don't know that I have all the answers. I will say, and listen, I've been a female in engineering since the late 80s.
Right.
Okay.
So you're used to being the only woman in the room, generally.
I am.
Just
and
like
I'm
me.
Not,
yeah.
Right. And I'm not sensitive to it. In other words, I'm like, not like, oh, poor me. But I do, as I've done more of this with sport teams, I do wonder, am I dismissed for being female by some leaders? But here's the deal. If I am, I don't want to work with them.
Right.
Okay? So forget that. I'm not, I don't want to work with them anyhow. And that's my low harmony coming out, right? I don't care. If you think I stink, I think you stink too.
Yeah.
So but what I think would be good to evaluate is now that we know if what I'm finding is true, and I believe it is, right? And you know it's true. There's a difference in what women teams need and what men's teams need in general, right? Now, when we get down to the individual level, it can vary, right? But in general, are we looking for women and coaches to say, who are wired like you, to say, come coach the guys?
Right.
And are we looking for women wired like Coach Sanderson to say, come coach the women?
Mm-hmm.
And if we are not doing that, we should start doing that, right? It should be an environment where if you've got the right talent, come be a coach. I don't care if you're male or female, right? But if you've got the right talent, the understanding of the game, of course, is paramount. But then there's that other stuff. Great coaches help players become great players. And if you've got the gift to do that, and it's centered more towards the human side of it and the relating side of it, then it's probably more for women. Or you're part of a team where you've got somebody wired like you, and then we need some balance. Because even on coaching staffs, there needs to be balance.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's helping define success as a coach. What does that look like for a women's team, for a man's team, for a school that has a particular culture, for a coaching staff that has a particular culture, and saying, come on board, we welcome you. And I don't know enough about it to know if that's happening or not, but that would be my take. And frankly, it's my same response to why aren't more women in STEM?
Right.
Only 10% of women have analytical in their top 5 strengths, and it's way higher for men, like triple that, right? So, okay, more men are wired like that. Are we getting those women and embracing them and saying, come on in? Or are we trying to take women that are analytical and saying, go be an engineer?
Right.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, because it's violating their strengths if it's
It
not
is.
if it's not in there.
Perfect. That's the perfect answer. See, Carrie, I think you could just do this without me.
Oh, no. Not at all. But I'm addicted to this, and I just find it so interesting. So I've been evaluating my friends in my mind, and when I'm having conversations, I'm like, oh, that's the analytical in you coming out, and they look at me like, Carrie, you are nuts, and I'm like, no, you need to do your strengths because it's so enlightening, and we need to compare them, and now I know why I like you because you balance me out. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have 5 people in the room with command, like you have.
Yeah, we're in trouble. We're in trouble because we're all wanting to drive the bus.
You are. Yes, you are. And that's by nature going to cause some issues, right? So it is such a wonderful journey to know your strengths, communicate your value proposition with confidence and clarity, and think about interviews. When you interview for jobs where you speak about these natural gifts that you have that are always present, you will always want to be in charge. You will always be confident. That's different than what you know. Excel spreadsheets, engineering, brain surgery. That's good, and we do need the people to know those things, but then what else do they bring to the game?
Right.
It's of value. It's of enduring value, and these are enduring characteristics. You were like this when you were little.
Yeah. So what teams are you working with currently? Are you working with?
I'm working with a boys lacrosse team that's currently in the playoffs, which is great. And I was in Florida recently I attended the American Hockey Coaches Association meeting in Naples, Florida, and I met hundreds of coaches. And I'm very excited to go back next year and have a booth. I didn't know what I was getting into, so I just went as an attendee. But I think there's some possibility of doing some work with some of those coaches as well. The nice thing about having worked with Coach Weidenbach and the Cranbrook Hockey Story and Destination Unstoppable, and by the way, there is a roadmap at the back. The story's told is the story. It's told just like it unfolded. It's in story format, and that makes it a faster and fun read, I think. But at the back of the book is a roadmap for coaches, for players, for leaders, for managers, and for just professional people that want to be better at what they do, to go through this journey yourself. I want people to follow this path without having to, there's only one of me, right?
Right.
So I really want to make that point so that people can do that if they wish to, and they can take the Strength Finder and know how to download their customized report. So we'll see. I'm going to go visit some of those coaches this summer. I head out to Princeton next week for the Way of Champions Conference with John O'Sullivan, and I'm going to talk to some of the people in the Princeton area, both at the high school and college level, I believe. And from there, I may wander up to some of the other colleges of coaches that I met in Florida.
Yeah, can you tell us more about the symposium that you just mentioned with John O'Sullivan? What?
Yeah, so I went last year. It's called the Way of Champions, and if you haven't heard of it, I recommend you Google it. And it is with some really remarkable sports leaders. John O'Sullivan's a soccer fellow man who's written a great book called Changing the Game. And it's about how we modify youth sports to make it more about player development and helping people become confident contributors to society and helping parents manage their expectations of their children, right? I mean, that's another whole
That is a whole nother topic, yeah. That is a whole nother topic.
Oh, boy. And James Lease from IMG Academy, and I know James, I went last year to this event, and he's going to be there, and so's a guy named Jerry, and I should have had that handy. I don't have that right.
Jerry Lynch. Is it Lynch?
Yes, Jerry Lynch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Reed Maltby as well. And so you're going to go learn some of the techniques they use with their amazing teams that they work with at all levels, right, from down to youth soccer all the way up through the NCAA and even, I think, professional sports teams to help them bring out the best in their players. So I highly recommend it. It's in Princeton this year. I don't know where it'll be next year. But if you haven't looked at it, I highly recommend it, Way of Champions. I met some remarkable. That's how I met Coach Nate Sanderson out of the Iowa Springville.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to have to yell. I got to talk to John. John O'Sullivan's a good friend of mine. And he schedules this always in, like the worst time for me. I want to go so bad and get all the information. But one of these days, I'll get to it.
Let's bring out that command, your six-pack of command, and help him understand.
I'll be like, John, bad timing, friend, bad timing. No,
gosh, you're funny.
No, it's great, and you know, I again, this is all of this is just so interesting to me, and I wanna. You mentioned the interview piece of it. I mean, I could visualize using this tool not as the only interview technique, but imagine, you know, having people come to you and trying to decide on what position is right for somebody within a, you know, a pro franchise or within you know, your own coaching staff, or whether it's youth or college, and knowing, you know, what those people's strengths are and not using that as the only determinant. But
no, it can't be. It is not a selection tool, right? But boy, do you get insight into that internal motor, that what makes them tick. It gives you a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
It's like having an extra man on the field.
Yeah.
Because you can trust what you've learned about that person. And by the way, this isn't a process where the player says, okay, coach, here's my strengths now, you know, what do you want me to do?
Right.
No, there's this dialogue, the richness of dialogue you can have about when a player goes south, what's going on, right? What if his strengths have been violated? What's happening with that beyond just what is going on? Now you can do it in the framework of the strengths.
Yeah.
And so maybe that player got with significance, felt that what happened, a big mistake, what made him feel insignificant, he's feeling a little destroyed, he or she is feeling destroyed, and you help them recover from that. Okay, a mistake, a bad day is not a bad life.
Yeah.
So let's set that behind us and help them move on, versus now you know why they're feeling that way, versus them being kind of petulant and going, that, you know, that kid's acting like a baby, or that man's acting like a baby, or that woman's acting like a baby. There's maybe something more you can get at to prevent it from happening in the future.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're slowly wrapping up here. How would someone? No. I know, right? We could talk forever on this because I'm addicted to it. But how can someone find your book? How can someone find you? Just tell us all that. I want to give you time for plugs, and if you're on Twitter or email or your website, just tell us how to find you.
Okay, so I am on Twitter, and it's Maureen E. Monte. My website is maureenmonte.com, and that's MaureenMonte.com. And my book is called Destination Unstoppable. I don't sell it on my website, but I often have discount codes from my distributor. And so I update it daily when I get a discount code. So if you were to check my website, it ranges from like 15% off to 30% off sometimes. And it's also available on Amazon.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. So you can just kind of Google me and you find me out there. I've got multiple webcasts that have where Gallup has featured me. And one thing I appreciate about my partnership with Gallup is they recognize that I'm one of the few people that have spent my years growing up with Strengths Finder in teams. Mm-hmm. Most people do individual coaching with Strengths Finder with this process. I like the team process. The teams are complicated, and the messes are messy, and people are difficult. And how do we fix all that with this approach? And in Strengths Finder, it doesn't solve your problems; it makes solving problems easier. So I can't say enough about it. And I've taken a lot of assessments. This one's really, really specific about who you are, and the customized report is also very, very enlightening. When you go to interview for a job, or you've got a new boss, if you simply took statements out of that customized report you have, Carrie, your insight guide that's called, if you cut and pasted those that were most relevant to you, and you put that in a paragraph, and you said, what does this say about me? Right?
Yeah, it's powerful when you really dig into it, yeah.
Yeah, so I highly recommend it. But I welcome talking to anybody about their strengths, individuals, coaches, teams. It's a joyful journey, and you will be a lot happier in life if you know what your strengths are and you leverage them with intent. The maximum potential is a kind of a byproduct. It's so much more fun. It's why those boys didn't talk about hoisting the trophy when I interviewed them. They talked about how great it felt to be a team that reached its full potential and be understood and put in a role to be successful by Coach Weidenbach.
Yeah, and the most powerful thing for me was how that team applied it in their life outside of the rink.
Yeah.
I mean, to hear those young men speak about finding their strengths and being able to apply them for internships and their education. And that was the most powerful piece. I mean, obviously being a sport person, I'm very behind how it can help you be successful as a team,
of course,
in the athletic realm, but the life realm is going to last a lot longer than the athletic realm. And it was amazing and hearing the impacts and how they were so thoughtful about thinking about their own strengths and how they can learn to leverage them was one of the most powerful pieces in the book.
You're absolutely correct. And frankly, my greatest joy, I'm not a competitive person. Like, competition is low for me. And so my joy is seeing the value of each of those kids and understanding what makes them tick, and then having them come back to me a couple of years later, will you write me a recommendation? Hey, I'm about to do my interview and I can't find my customized report. Can you send it to me? Right. And I'm just thrilled to remain in touch with these young men and women who then use this as part of their life going forward. This is life stuff. It isn't sports stuff.
Yeah. Well, Maureen, thank you so much for calling in and for sharing your knowledge and educating our listeners about the Strengths Finder. And I'm excited to have you as a new friend, and I will be checking in on, and I'll do my Strengths Finder homework that you've assigned me. So
yes,
really,
I knew you'd be a good student.
Oh well, thank you. It's in my achiever. Or my learner. No, it's in my learner. Yes, in my learner.
And I think in your achiever. Then you can cross that off. And
okay.
You can move on.
Yeah, I can cross it off.
I think you're right. With both of those.
Well,
thank you, Carrie. I can't say thank you enough to work with someone of your caliber who got it immediately. It was so exciting for me to have you reach out to me and have our wonderful conversation about your own strengths. This is my joy right here. Right, this is it. So thank you for that opportunity.
Well, awesome. And enjoy your time at the Way of Champions conference. So Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Women Talking Football. We've been on with Maureen Monte, and her book is called Destination Unstoppable. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Women Talking Football, presented by Soccer Nation and in affiliation with Soccer Loco, Techne Football, and Kings Pro. Thanks, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.